My name is Pacey, and I'm here to correct some narratives about Huni and his time on SKT. But before I can go into his time on SKT, I have to tell you who Huni is as a player from all the way back in 2014 or Season 4. Back in Season 4, Huni was on the rookie practice roster of Samsung Galaxy. Their team was known as Samsung Red, and when European teams such as Fnatic and Alliance came over to Korea for a boot camp Season 4 Worlds, they scrimmed against Huni's Samsung Red. Huni impressed so much that SOAS, after he left Fnatic, recommended Huni for the spot, just from getting stomped this hard by him in scrims. Already a player that is showing a lot of talent, just taking on one of the Western GOATs in his position and demolishing him, albeit just scrims. Before that, we don't really know anything about Huni. Fast forward to 2015 season, when he's on Fnatic with the roster of Reignover, Vivin, Steelback, Yellowstar. And let me tell you, if you haven't watched Season 5 Huni, you don't know who Huni is as a player. This was the single biggest topside gap in League of Legends history, besides maybe the Shy at Season 8 Worlds. But for LEC or any Western league, Huni gapped every single top lane, and it wasn't even close. He and Reignover almost solo carried Fnatic when they had Steelback as an ADC, arguably a good support. But when he was an AD player, garbage. At the time, analysts were calling him a cleanup AD carry, which just means you're bad at team fighting, and all you can do is last hit from what your solo laners have done. He won both EU LCS championships in 2015 in spring and summer, also beating SOAS in finals of summer 2015. Another time that SOAS got clapped by Huni. He goes into Worlds and puts on a great performance. He leads Fnatic to a semifinals placing where he plays against probably the only top laner that was better than him at the time. Oh no, Marin was better. Probably he played against one of the only two top laners that were better than him at the time, which was Marin and Smeb. Other than those two, Huni was probably the best top laner in the world, coming from a European league. That's how dominant he was. Now we fast forward to 2016. 2016 was, you could consider it a bad year in Huni's career, but only because of the high bar of excellence he set beforehand. This year, he set regular season records with the Mortals, carrying a bot lane of Wild Turtle and Adrian, who you just see from the careers, they're not carry players, they're just role players, and had plenty of Adrian himself had plenty of attitude issues. But Huni carrying them to a 17-1 finish in spring, and a 16-2 finish in summer split. Now fast forward past his immortal years, he gets recruited by SKT. He's gapped so many Western top laners, he's impressed so much that the org SKT decided to recruit him to replace the likes of Marin and the likes of Dukes. Both amazing solo laners in their own right at the time. Now we start the 2017 SKT season. I don't know if it was Huni just being so good, but I look back, it looked like LCK was actually pretty weak. But Huni gapped every single top laner in LCK that wasn't named Smeb. And even then, he just had the better team, so he just won. SKT stomped LCK in 2017 spring. It wasn't even close. They go to MSI, and they do the same thing. They just stomp every single team at MSI like it's nothing. I think they had two losses in the group stage, maybe three, and then they dropped maybe 2 games in the playoff brackets of MSI. So now Huni's an international champion, an MSI champion at this point. Pretty good. And he performed well the entire time. Like in spring split, it was a tank meta. He was getting solo kills in tank versus tank matchups and going up 30 CS almost every game, or at least once in a series. It was insane the performance this guy was giving. Then we come to summer split of 2017. This is where things get shaky and SKT starts experiencing turmoil and roster issues. Now, to give context, all of SKT's wins in the past 2013 were strong solo laners in Faker and Marin or Faker and Duke, being able to carry, and their bot lane, the most overrated bot lane in existence, just playing weak side and showing up to team fights when needed. And they had probably the most whack jungler, but the most whack jungler that played the style they needed in Bingy. Bingy is a weird player. He is a three-time world champion, but he did it playing in the weirdest way possible, and what many analysts call, he was not that good when he won his last 2 championships. He was whatever. So much so that SKT was trying to replace him in their Season 6 run. Anyway, Bingy was bad, but he fit the SKT system very well. That's how they won. So, now SKT recruits this hotshot jungler named Peanut. Mechanically gifted, had been almost hard carrying rocks with Smeb the previous year. Looked like a slam dunk signing. However, SKT didn't change their system. They tried to bastardize Peanut's playstyle into Bingy Light, which is the worst thing you do for a mechanical player that plays by instinct and not by brain, which is exactly what Peanut does. They, instead of releasing Peanut and building a team that could help him take over the game and just win, they forced him to become a passive farming jungler that just showed up to some team fights and skirmishes. However, that's not Peanut. And you saw, Peanut was playing like absolute trash by the time Summer Split and Worlds was coming around. Like, he was getting benched for Blank, and everyone knows Blank is a bad player. Blank was SKT's savior. If that doesn't tell you how bad the roster is at that point, then I don't need to tell you. Huni being benched is a symptom of the systemic failure, not the cause. Huni having a jungler that doesn't want to play the same way that SKT has to play. Huni having to play with 2 different junglers in Blank and Peanut, and then getting benched for an even worse player, Untara, who we saw go to EULCS the next year and absolutely int. This dude sucked. He was awful. Yeah, whatever. I was thinking of Prophet, not Untara. But the next split, SKT didn't do shit with Untara, did they? Alright. So, after a disappointing into summer split where Huni got subbed in one of the final games of playoffs against Longju, and they won, by the way. What's Huni going like? He popped off on Gnar. It was a good performance. Then they go to Worlds. They win their group. And they chose Huni over Untara. That tells you all you need to know. Put your money where your mouth is. SKT thought they had the better chance of winning with Huni than Untara. The issue, however, was still Peanut and the bot lane. So, coming to World Season 7, the Ardent Censer meta happened. Ardent Censer, probably the most broken meta for Enchantress supports and hard carry ADCs ever to happen. This meant top laners were stuck on weak side tank duties, the opposite of what Huni made his name on, by the way, in Western leagues. However, he had shown he could play this style in Spring Split. He was pretty freaking good at tanks. However, his bot lane, not a hard carry bot lane, Bang was the most overrated role-playing ADC to ever touch the game. If you can imagine SKT style with Prey instead of Bang, just slot in Prey. I think they win that Worlds, by the way. I think Prey's a 10 times better player than Bang at that style for SKT's system. And Wolf, don't get me started. Wolf, besides Baolan, one of the worst supports to ever win the World Championship. And multiple times at that. That just shows how good Faker and his soul laners were. But enough about that. Because of these issues and SKT's system finally breaking down, it's because they kept their bot lane that was definitely not good and not the best. They kept them way too long. And Huni suffered because of this. Because what's he supposed to do when his bot lane just gets perma-rolled without any jungle pressure, without any mid pressure? So guess what? Faker has to win mid, and instead of going top to press the lead, he has to go bot to stabilize. So what does that leave Huni with? Fucking nothing. He just gets fucked because he's trying to win the game for his team. But no, they can't help him. Anyway, SKT actually makes it to finals of World Championship. But first, they go to 5 games in quarterfinals against Misfits. some third-string European team that had no business ever taking SKT to 5 games. Like, do you know how they did it? Through a bot gap. Because SKT's bot lane was dog shit, and they never get fucking taken about it. They never get talked about. It's all Huni's fault for some fucking reason. Even though in Game 5, he had an insane Jace flank that one-shot power of evil and won them the series. And then they go to RNG. Game 5, Huni's on Gnar. He gets a 3-4-man Gnar in the final fight. Boom! They win the series. They get to go to finals. All while SKT's bot lane is just coasting in a meta where it's supposed to be bot-centric and they're supposed to win. It's all about bot lane. But it's the Huni and Faker show. You never talk about their bot lane that entire tournament. It's dog shit. Next, we get to the finals where SKT get 3-0'd by Samsung Galaxy, and probably the most boring World Championship finals I've ever seen. Each game was a slow death by SKT. They just waited to die because Samsung had the better bot lane, better AD carry, had the better jungler, a flawed jungler, but better, and they knew how to neutralize SKT's solo laners. And that was the name of the game. That's all they did. Mid lane just neutralized Faker with 3 Malzahar picks. Kube got counter pick most of the time, got to play Gnar into Huni's tanks, and the bot lane just got rolled. And that was it. Except in the third game. Huni got to counterpick Kube's Cho'Gath, if I remember correctly, was Trundle. Huni was stomping this game. He was the only reason SKT was in this game, by the way. And then what happens? SKT gets caught. Not Huni. SKT. Their bot lane gets caught, and it leads to a snowball where Samsung gets Baron, and they start sieging. However, they have a good team fight where Huni gets a double or triple kill, and they're back in the game. It's even. Until Faker gets flashed on and caught by Ruler's Bears. I don't see Huni's mistake here. You know what Huni's mistake was? Joining a crumbling roster. That's what it was. After 2017, look at SKT right after their split. They replaced their in-team top laner, and they replaced their junglers. They got 4th in LCK that year, in that spring split. 4th. They had the same bot lane, by the way. They had Faker, Bang, and Wolf. But it wasn't Bang and Wolf's fault. No. It was the top lane. It was the top laners. They weren't even in contention for a championship. And you know what happened in Summer Split? They didn't even go to playoffs. They're dog shit that year. That's what happens when you go... That's what happens when you misdiagnose the problem. Now, Huni wasn't perfect. Well, perfectly by any means. But he did not deserve any flack for that World Championship or that 2017 year. In fact, I think that was one of Huni's best years ever. He was playing in a harder region than any of the Western leagues, and he absolutely dominated. And he held his own against Smeb, the #1 Worlds player for 2 years maybe. That's it.